RuneScape may be permanently changing, and now more than ever, it is crucial that we as fans of the IP and of the MMO genre play a role in shaping it. Let me explain. I am an ex-WoW, now Oldschool Runescape player and an MMO YouTuber. I recently spent over 300 hours playing RuneScape 3. The video I created about my experience is filled with positives and negatives. This version of RuneScape is one most are aware of, but many don't play. It has been plagued by bad publicity and has been at the precipice of disaster for a long time. So much so that months back, the new CEO of Jagex had to feature in a video, essentially saying that the future of the game is not sustainable. It isn't growing, and as we all know, MMOs have to grow to foster investment from their owners and excitement from their player base. There are many issues with RuneScape 3, some valid, others fictional, let's just say, but without a doubt, the most common criticism is that of its monetization, its MTX, how every facet of the game is flooded and influenced by cash shop integrations. They have, over time, completely devalued the game's progression, annihilated the early to mid-game economy, and irreparably scarred its perception and integrity amongst the broader MMO community. And now, that may change. They are polling the removal of its treasure hunter system. But as I said in my prior video on this game, removing the MTX won't magically bring players back, and we'll get into that. But removing it will create a sturdy backbone to build on top of. Yet I always go back to my favorite Mike Ehrmantraut quote.
No more half measures, Walter.
But first I want to be clear. Everyone should be voting on this poll, not just RuneScape 3 players, old school players, and MMO fans in general. There is no debate about real-world gambling in video games. It's not a topic up for discussion, certainly not in the scope of massively multiplayer games. It's bad, it's predatory, it feeds off of addictions that are already attracted by the kinds of demographics that play the genre. Outside of the gray morality, it's cancerous to the game. You don't need to play RuneScape 3 to understand how MTX has killed games before. But even more importantly, this poll should not be aimed at RuneScape 3 players. That isn't the point of its inception. When the Jagex CEO stepped out into the limelight and said that the future is bleak if the trajectory doesn't change, and then motioned to a lack of growth, that should ring every alarm bell in the existing community. This poll, this update, and likely many future ones, is not there to engage only the audience that has remained in the game despite its predatory MTX. This poll is essentially there for everyone else, the potential players, those who can reverse the current trajectory of the game and help it build a healthier player base that warrants future investments. That's why I fundamentally disagree with the notion that this poll is one that should only be voted on by existing players. If anything, its existing players are the least important in the situation. They are those who are the most amicable to these systems because they haven't been pushed away by them. So as a RuneScape player, old school or not, current or not, it is in your best interest to vote yes. Having multiple successful MMOs under the RuneScape banner is only a good thing. Having another growing MMO is great for the genre. Now, that doesn't mean RuneScape 3 is safe or will magically become healthy again, but what it does mean is that there is or should be no room for this kind of predation in MMOs, especially not in sandbox ones where having multiple different paths for success and intersectionality is fundamental to their gameplay systems. By offering the path of least resistance, it becomes the standard. Jagex released data on this based on 4 experiments ran over the last couple months, suggesting that the majority of players are amicable to the removal of certain MTX systems, including their most predatory, Treasure Hunter, the gambling shop. To refer back to my earlier point regarding a player base comfortable in the current state of affairs, there was also a not insubstantial amount of players that either didn't want it to be removed or felt like their subscription was being devalued by the removal of its free systems. Essentially, daily login bonuses that pushed players to eventually spend money when they become accustomed to receiving hard-earned progression for free. And this is where my concerns start to rear their ugly heads once again. While I am more than happy to hear that there will be a removal of the game's gambling and a reinvigorated effort to reduce its overabundance of dailies, the issue I most care about, as well as potentially fixing its endless onboarding problems, I still fear that we are Jesse Pinkman in this situation. We are taking half measures. Removing gambling is great, but Jagex has insisted that there will be alternatives for expediting progression. You can purchase bonus experience earned through training, for example, which is an improvement as it requires actually playing the game, but it isn't dispelling any myths. Once again, the poll here, the core problem, is in its perception. What does the game look like to those who don't play? Because those are the only people who are capable of saving it. Whether there is gambling or not does not change the fact that most players' end goals in RuneScape involve training skills. So by offering cash shop methods to expedite the process, it's pay to win, objectively speaking. As for most people, winning is achieving their skill and goals. The excuses to retain these systems are exactly what one would expect. Well, I'm a single father of 55 children and I only have 12 seconds a day to play. How do you expect me to progress in RuneScape if I didn't have the MTX? Well, I wouldn't. But also, why is that relevant? Why are we advocating for changing an entire genre, one known for long-form goals and progression, valuing patience over reaction times, over attracting a community that actually wants to play the game? The people who choose to never start or not continue playing RuneScape 3 because of or in part due to its monetization are those who are likely to want their long-term goals to mean something, not just to themselves, but to those they play with, who they play alongside. That's kind of how online games work, right? They are the real world in a microcosm. Someone's achievements aren't just their own, they are recognized communally. That's a huge motivating factor to push yourself to achieve something great. And if that achievement holds minimal value because of external factors such as monetization, well, why would these players ever choose to engage? They wouldn't. All of this is why the common argument of just ignore it then, don't do it, hold even less merit in the context of an MMO. I can't ignore economic values in the game. I can't purchase a god sword for 1 GP because, well, to me, that's how much it's worth. It's not subjective. These are mutually understood systems that, in the case of the economy, we have recognized sums to defer to. But other achievements are determined by social economies. There may not be a gold value on getting all your skills maxed, but there is a social value, a social motivation, one which rapidly declines when the game is flooded with skips and boosts. Now, you can still be proud of your achievements, but you don't exist in a vacuum, and not existing in a vacuum is a huge appeal of the genre. It's a multiplayer game. So while you may be able to ignore the lack of value or devaluation of social economies in RuneScape 3, most people clearly don't, considering just how few strive to achieve said goals, certainly without engaging in the cash shop. We can't appeal to the former when the latter clearly makes up a larger potential demographic. An MMO is grindy. RuneScape as an IP is known for its grinds. That's what makes it such a beloved, curated sandbox. You cannot, in good faith, say that RuneScape 3 is too grindy outside of its MTX and therefore is prone to fail when its sister game, Oldschool Runescape, is far grindier and far larger, growing even. It's simply not a tenable excuse. Right now, too many RuneScape 3 players are comfortable with not playing. When you have a game that caters to skipping content, you end up creating a player base that values destinations over motivations, conclusions over journeys. There is no future there for a game, for gameplay. No half measures. There have to be sacrifices made to sustain and save a project. I'm not trying to insult people who want this kind of progression, but to hopefully cause them to introspect a little. What about the endless glut of experience skips appeals to you? Is it because you have unconsciously accepted that the only thing of value in the game is concluding it, reaching an arbitrary point, being done? If so, then isn't that the same as just not playing? The problem with RuneScape 3 is content driven. Not because it's too grindy or too difficult, there is a substantial community that just doesn't engage in the game as a game, one that was birthed by this kind of predatory MTX. It's self-perpetuating. Why would Jagex fix the early and mid game when most players are pushed to skip it by the game itself? Why would players want to put more effort into a game that has, over the past decade, stripped effort away? That feels like a lose-lose, which is why I empathize with the gut reaction of my subscription is being devalued. Because at some point in the past decade, the value has transformed into finishing rather than into playing. I would argue the opposite. By removing these systems, your subscription's value increases exponentially, especially when we consider what a healthier future could have, from new early and mid-game content to a fundamental rebalancing of skilling methods with the knowledge that most of the player base actually has to do them. This will only happen if the player base can reconfigure their mentality by redistributing what they have determined to be a value to what the value of a game should be. On its face, that sounds demeaning and patronizing, but I hope we can all agree that we shouldn't determine whether a game is worth investing into based on how much cash shop currency it is willing to give you for your subscription. I think most players implicitly recognize this. There's a reason why RPG systems and progression have become so standard in every genre. Look back to Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, how the developers took a constrained multiplayer design philosophy and made a weapons-driven sandbox in it, with progression systems and levels and grinds that unlock achievements as points of pride. Ask anyone who was 12 to 15 at the time and played the game religiously, and they will likely remember what it felt like getting their first fall camo on a gun. Not because they could swipe and obtain it, but because they spent hours upon hours grinding headshots. Value through patience and determination is the strength of RPG progression. That's why it has become ubiquitous in the entire gaming space. You'd be hard-pressed to find a game that hasn't integrated some form of leveling system, for example. So why should the most beloved incarnations of this philosophy be spoiled by external monetization? Whether you are a father of 55 children or a single guy with a stay-at-home job, every moment in a sandbox like RuneScape should feel permanent. It should feel like incremental progression. It can be from gaining a single experience point that will never leave your account or obtaining an item that now defines it. By ignoring these foundational psychological elements of game design, we breed an environment that causes MMOs to burn out rapidly. Don't fall victim to narrow value. Put it on the game to showcase where other values can exist. It isn't uncommon to hear that the best part of Oldschool Runescape is the early and mid-game journeys the players go on that are simply not had in RuneScape 3, whether it be due to microtransactions or just the glut of dailies that pollute interconnected systems. Finally, I just want to say this. Don't cater games or updates toward people who don't want to or can't play. This is a pitfall that more games than just RS3 fall under, and it's one that, to me, never ends well. You end up scaring away committed, passionate players in favor of tourists and fair weather subscribers. Those aren't bad things inherently, by the way. They are very valuable, but they should be a byproduct of design, not an intention of design. To bring this back to microtransactions, they are the cancer that rots away even the healthiest projects. I am very much an absolutist when it comes to MTX. I don't like any of it, including bonds. I accept the little bit I can, but whenever possible, I always prefer subscription models and other baseline payment plans that put everyone on equal playing fields and let their own commitments and motivations color their journeys and achievements. But there is a hierarchy to predation. Not every microtransaction is equal. Gambling gacha systems are at the top, pay-to-win boosts are secondary, and cosmetics are tertiary. Lopping off the very top is great, but for this genre's games to succeed, I think there needs to be more done to assure players of value, starting here. This is a great step forward for RuneScape 3, but it's not the end. Hell, it's barely the beginning. Returns will not be seen for a long while, and I hope that everyone from the player base to the investors making origami with $100 bills are aware of this. This is not the key to success. It's a gamble, a spin, and as we wait to see where our fortunes lie, I am advocating that every person, lapsed, curious or not, make sure that Jagex sees this for what it is, a journey, not a destination.